Try this again. Hola, hola, buenos dias, buenos noches, buenos tardes, G&Gs. My name is Striker2Ks. Welcome to the Weekend Crypto segment brought to you here on the Gentleman of Crypto Network. If you don't know, I do a segment where I basically cover crypto-related news stories that happen between a Friday and a Sunday, pop them out 08 Monday morning. Sometimes it's a pre-record. Sometimes I go live, like case in point, and I have all these technical difficulties. Yeah. And so housekeeping is this segment is brought to you by CJ the Smart Guy. Yes, we already passed the tax season here in the States, but if you're here in the States in that American jurisdiction, you might want to cross your T's and dot your I's, because if you go through some of the stories that I've covered for over how long, the IRS is definitely looking at the American public as lunch meat, because just wait until after elections get done. It's going to look crazy out here. Nonetheless, folks, I'm going to jump into these stories. I got a couple of Hong Kong things, some Paraguay stuff, even touched a little bit on Russia. IMF said something interesting about the Russia situation, aka the R state. All right, so boom, that happened. Sorry, I don't know what is going on. YouTube has been acting funky with me since the weekend, and I don't know why. At first, I thought it was just something going on my laptop. But anywho, I appreciate the folks who cross over onto the new thing. I appreciate the lurkers. I appreciate the scammers. I appreciate the folks who come back. So let's jump into these stories, because now I lost even more time. Again, to remember, all the links for the articles that I'm going off of will be in the description if you want to actually read it for yourself. And I do the whole no price talk filter. We got a bunch of other folks who do it. All the content cousins, King and Zay, Black Rule, Stacks, even the Simonson family. They do this. They do what they do, and shout outs to them for keep doing what they're doing. So first story, Hong Kong. The police arrest a shop exchange employee for suspicion of fraud. They basically were scamming people of where they would get them to transfer their crypto. They give an example of a story where the person transfers a couple of stacks of USTD, and then they're like, oh yeah, we can't pay you, but we'll get back to you. They never get back to the person, so they got him, right? And I said this a while ago, and I've been saying the whole thing of, with the way things are going globally in the various financial and economic markets, we will see more people try to find ways to scam other folks, right? In that everyone's out to get theirs. And think about it in a sense of, if you see corporate folks and government folks out to get theirs, eventually it boils down to the everyday average person that is not in a quote criminal enterprise. So it's one thing if you're in a quote crime organization, whether it be a gang or whether you're in some money laundering thing or whatever. It's another thing when you start seeing it spill over to regular people who just happen to take advantage of a situation, or who look to get involved in some kind of illegal thing because financially they're strapped on other things, right? Sorry. And so we see more and more of those cases. Case in point, there was a joint last year in New York where the same thing that this exchange was doing, it was a underground network, a black market network that was doing the same thing in New York. And it was some Indian nationals that were doing it. And they was giving stacks of USD. That's where they messed up, arguably, because you messed with the dollar itself. Once you mess with a country's currency, the yen, the dollar, the peso, the shekel, whatever it is, that's where you start running into major issues once you touch their actual financial instrument. So yeah, that happens. And to the other point of what I was saying about the Hong Kong situation, you have the CBDCs, which is another story I'm gonna cover in a minute. You have fiat currency, You have digital derivative financial instruments. Financial instruments. That's the ETF. You have precious metals. That's the gold, the silver, the palladium, all of that other actual physical items, or the god damn it, the paper market side of that too, right? And then you have cryptos. So you have 5 varying mediums that represent capital, right? I believe it, bro. Trust me, I believe it. I appreciate the scammers though, because if the scammers didn't come onto the channel, that means like we ain't saying nothing, we ain't doing nothing. And I know, we know on the back end that YouTube messes with the numbers for how we see like what the visuals look like on the live and all of that stuff, and as well as the comments and stuff. But yeah, I know. So point being, going forward in regards to this Hong Kong thing, we're seeing multiple indicators that show people are going to be people. The criminal elements or the criminal behaviors or cases that could be labeled as criminal will expand. Hong Kong is just a unique thing because of how it connects to China. But we have the same thing going on in London. We have the same thing going on in New York. Like, it's not just a Hong Kong thing, is the point. More stories like this will come up, is how I'm taking it, in large part because, things are getting kind of screwy on the larger economic stage. Other story. Oh, by the way, that last story was with, who was that? That was Crypto Potato. Link for that would be in the description. This next story, not directly crypto related, but again, I've said it before. I find ways that crypto relates to things that's just like, oh wow, like I never thought of it that way. So in this article, IMF acknowledges Russian asset confiscation might undermine the world's financial system. Now, for the people on my radar and who I pay attention to, they've been calling this out for months. If the US goes through and actually takes, if the US or EU actually takes the financial assets, whether they be the physical thing or the monetary amount sitting in some financial institution, and say, all right, Russia, y'all no longer control this. We're going to use it this way, blah, 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 blah. The question, what it then does is it throws the confidence of nation states, normal business practice of like, I'm giving you this capital and you're not going to do anything funky. If we break that confidence of conventional practice in relation to like bilateral trades and jurisdictions and rule of law, it then opens up a can of worms for everyone else as a nation state. Even if they are friend or foe, it still goes, well, damn, if they found a justification. Now, a justification doesn't necessarily mean it's, quote, legal. It means that you're validating to say, well, I can do this because blah, 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 blah. And then if you get a number of other people / countries to agree with you, it's just like, well, yeah, that would be reasonable. Like, they did this to you, you should be able to do that. You agree, right? You agree, right? Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. We're over here turning international law on its head. Here's where the crypto angle comes in. If a monetary body, the International Monetary Fund, acknowledges, and the way that this article puts it out, they don't give you the link to the actual report or the press release of it, that, hey, if this country takes away this country's assets and says you no longer own it, you no longer control it. Mind you, when they did this with Venezuela, oh, I got a Venezuela story. Sorry. Here is why it's bad for a government to be able to take, freeze, hold another government's money, capital, monetary funds, whatever, or assets, and like, quote, take control of it, right, is because if it's bad for a country, why isn't it also not bad, for a people, for the individuals, for the citizens of that nation state, of that country? And that's my crypto connection, as far as if the IMF can acknowledge that it's a bad thing if a government is able to take another government's money, why does no one make or like at that level fight for or talk about how it's bad when a government can take the people's money? And I'm not talking off of illegal criminal activities. I'm just talking off of how it works here in the States, that the banks can tell you, nah, we're not giving you your money, even though you've been a member of this bank for 20 plus years. There are literally cases like that here in the States. And that's the fiat side of it, let alone what they're trying to tell you they're going to do with crypto down the road. That's my crypto connection to this IMF story. The other thing to note, again, for who's on my radar, they're looking at this going, this is not going to end well for the US, for the EU, and the larger government, the larger nation states, because it's going to break what has been traditional practice and follows international law of how countries hold each other's currency or assets. This is going to be a bad situation for us. But we got who we got in office. And I think, in my mind, in this situation, I think the US is waiting until after the elections happen. There are so many things happening on the global scale that are revolving around the conclusion of our national elections. It's so crazy how many things are going to fall after our national elections, and on the international thing of it. Because, you know what, I'm not even going to get into that tangent, but if you're paying attention to international stuff and where the US's name is in it, note how much of it seems to be waiting for our national election. All right, next joint. Paraguay. They are, and I've said this before, as far as like what we see here in the States, the different states are going, left or right on this whole thing with the cryptocurrencies, as far as like being able to mine it. How are we looking at doing the local tax thing? Is the state looking to own some of the crypto? Is the state encouraging people to do individual mining, mom and pop level? Is the state looking to encourage more protective or friendly regulation around data centers for the commercial scale side of mining? We have all of that going on, and some states are being, friendly. Some states are being very anti. It's the same thing going on with the countries. And in regards to Paraguay, now, if somebody got some folks down there, I would love to hear some direct thing. But for the things that I'm aware of for how Latin America works, and I thought about this when I was reading this article, right? The law enforcement is basically pushing them to be like, hey, or the government is basically like, hey, regulators, you guys need to make some laws that work to where we can make Bitcoin mining illegal. Which is like, wow, y'all are really going to shoot yourself in the foot like that? And it's not just a Bitcoin thing. That's the other thing to remember. Excuse me. The article is kind of short-sighted. This is off of bitcoin.com, where it doesn't give you the full context, because it's literally just one paragraph. So the full context of what is the actual power situation? The power company down there is government controlled, owned, whichever way you want to look at that. But at the same time, people are still doing what they're doing to run miners down there. Companies are still moving or setting up shop down there. Why? Because the energy's cheap. So arguably, the real thing to do is target the companies first, which probably another thing to note, because they literally talk about how they took 5,000 ASIC miners and confiscated it within this year. Wow. That's not a mom and pop operation. So really, go after the companies that are setting up and be like, hey, y'all can get the power, but you have to do something to pay back into the system. That would be the arguably smarter thing to do. Or if you were a company, be like, hey, we'll do it like what we have here in the States. All right, we'll sell energy back, or we'll give energy back to blah, blah, blah grid, or we'll partner with local industries that hey, what's going on, recycling guy? We'll partner with local industries and businesses that need energy to do something. Like, for example, like agriculture, something within agriculture, or something within some kind of manufacturing or something. Like, there is ways to make this be a more productive thing in relation to the local, markets, and that way, because really what's going on in this is that the energy company, as far being the government, is like, yo, these folks are making money and we not getting our cut. I would argue what the miners should do is they should figure out a way to be a more productive, have a productive byproduct of what they do that benefits the local market, if that makes sense. Again, partnering with some local business and be like, all right, here's what we could do for the access energy that we have. Here's what we could do for the heat that we generate. Like, you're not just popping up, even with 1,000 or 500 miners. Like, there's ways to make it more productive. The other thing I thought about with this is the government is talking about how they want to resell the stuff. I don't know what y'all know about the hacker industry within Latin America, but that joint is real. Now, some people will argue, well, who's going to be stupid enough to get a miner and then not totally like wipe the system and then do a whole new firmware load and blah, blah. I promise you, most folks will not do that. In my mind, if somebody wanted to be proactive, it'd be like, all right, how do I get into that network of the folks who are collecting the miners? Yo, here's, 5,000 pesos, just load it up on one of these joints, or load it up on at least like 5% of them, 10% of them. Those get resold, and all you got to do is just sit back and wait for someone else to buy it, and it's a numbers game. But anywho, I'm not telling y'all or encouraging y'all to do anything illegal. That was just me and my thought process because of what I understand about the Latin American hacker market. And I feel like there's a potential for this situation and other countries that will look to do we're going to take them, we're going to confiscate all of people's miners, and then we're going to resell them. Because the odds are, if somebody's really being smart, and even like, the three-letter spooky agencies, they can do the same thing, corrupt the network that way, and track and trace the network that way, besides just being able to look at wallet addresses. That's just my brain and how it works. Again, this story goes to the bigger point of the trend of where folks are seeing are more the countries are now getting into they're falling on the left or right of the fence. Are they pro crypto? Are they anti crypto? As far as the mining is concerned, as far as even having it in the country, we see more and more countries picking a left or right side of the fence. That's the pattern going forward for the rest of this decade. All right, this other story. Kraken says no plans to delist Tether USTD stablecoin in Europe. So, all right, this is from cryptonews.com. The way they wrote this article, it doesn't necessarily tell you what the issue is with Tether and Europe outside of the new MiCA regulations that's coming online this year in Europe. Basically have a anti-stablecoin framework. And so the question is, for the exchanges that are not local, hey, do you still keep offering access to stablecoins in the European market if MiCA is going to is basically like an anti-stablecoin thing right now. Where Kraken comes into it is there was an article in Bloomberg that was like, hey, Kraken is looking at delisting stuff. They've already delisted things. But you got to understand, for how the space works now, stable coins work as a instantary financial medium to protect you from slippage when you're moving between exchanges, when you're trying to sell, trade, buy, all that fun stuff on that side of the house. Stable coins have basically come to establish themselves as a part of the space, right? And Tether is the dominant player right now. That's the bottom line of it. And so with that, Kraken kind of gets drawn into this because their name was mentioned in Bloomberg. So then their financial person, Mark Greenberg, is like, hey, we not planning to do nothing. Tether's still going to be there in Europe. Why? Because X amount of the exchanges realize that Tether is a significant financial medium, crypto financial medium within the market in general. Funny enough, OK Coin, was it OK Coin? Where are you at? OK Coin said they're not doing it. What I didn't like about how this article went, and y'all know sometimes like I be agreeing with everything, and then sometimes I just be picking people's stuff apart, is they then get into the whole SEC lawsuit stuff at the end. It's like, well, if you're talking about Europe, why are you bringing in the US part of it? It's two different legal frameworks, legal bodies. It's two different situations. Why bring up the SEC stuff with Kraken if we're talking about USTD in Europe and what MICA means to it in general? And what I also find interesting is that the EU isn't going after Tether directly to be like, hey, you guys can't operate in our jurisdiction anymore. Why? Because you can get Tether on your own wallet as an individual person. So what do? You go to the junction point. The junction point is the exchanges. Because most people who are using Tether are using it to do trading, whether they're day traders or long-term traders, swing traders or whatever, long-term traders. You're not doing stable coins in a peer-to-peer thing like you would if I was paying for a product or service using a Bitcoin or a Dogecoin or whatever other thing for like a more peer-to-peer exchange. Tether has solidified itself, at least for what it looks like right now, within the trading space. It doesn't work in regular everyday commerce stuff because, I mean, arguably, yeah, it could. And I imagine there's probably a small percentage of people who are using it in that manner, but the overwhelming people are using it in the trading aspect. Hey, I appreciate you, Crypto City. Yeah, I had to restart the whole thing and I was late. So yeah. All right, I got a couple minutes left to go. All right, that's the Hong. All right, so other Hong Kong story. As I said before, Hong Kong is a sandbox. They just had it that they started now the trials of the Digital One, aka CBDC, aka the Blue Dog, as I call it, at the retail level. And so now you have X number of stores that, of course, these stores are chains that you can go in and you can buy whatever it is you're looking to buy. Now, the adoption of the CBDC is still going through its trial phases of where the government is pushing it down to the retail level, saying, hey, and you know what's funny? For all of the stories that I've covered so far, I haven't seen anything that like gets into the not minutia, but the details of how is the government pushing it to the companies and saying like, well, here's the pro if you start integrating it now. Because China, aka C-State, aka CCP, they're, at least to what it looks like to me, is they're pushing the CBDC along the One Belt, One Road route. So Singapore has it. They did another deal with one of the K countries like Kurdistan or I can't remember the name of it right now, but they did a deal with one of them. And so in my mind, it's like, how are they going in and selling the pro of it aside from the whole thing of like the track and trace capability? All right, I'm losing on that thought because I'm running down a rabbit hole in my mind by myself. The bottom line is, this is another story that goes to the pattern of what is happening in Hong Kong. They're mixing all of these various financial mediums, these financial instruments into this sandbox, and they're looking to see how does it play out here, and then what do we do that we might need to adjust it when we push it down the road in the other market. Case in point. And I said, when this, because there was an article that came out either this year or last year, and I was like, okay, probably within the next 12 months, you'll see this get launched. And what China's gonna be able to do is, because markets, when I say markets, markets is like the region, markets is like that local area of where the thing is being implemented. The folks there are going to not accommodate, but they're going to get used to using the thing one way or the other, right? And then the governing body of it has to look at it and go, well, how are people adopting? Are they adopting the way that we thought they would? Do we have to do other things to make either the technology work better or the narrative of how people will adopt it better? And that's what's going on in Hong Kong. They already seen what it did in China, in mainland, right? And we already see that you have a percentage of the people who are paid in digital yuan, aka the CBDC, in mainland China, just cash back out into the currency, into the country's fiat, right? Some people keep it, some people cash out. Now the question is, how is this going to look here in Hong Kong? And then you go through the iterations of figuring out, what do we need to do to get the adoption rate to go up, aside from doing the draconian stuff of acclimate. Thank you very much. That's the word I was looking for. People acclimate to the system. And so you then push it along, and you'll have to make little tweaks, right? Because the Hong Kong society or cultural norms is not the same as the Singaporean, it's not the same as the Malaysian, it's not the same as the EU, it's not the same as Latin America, it's not the same as the Africans. And so they'll make little changes in how to make it. The technology is going to relatively stay the same. The interface might change a little bit, but they're going to do things to make it more acceptable to the different markets because of the cultural nuances. And in my mind, there'll be other countries on the sideline watching, going, oh, okay, we see how you did it over there. Okay, bet. When we do ours, we're going to do things that make it native to our local market. And then when we try to get out, and remember what I was saying about the bilateral trade deals, there will be agreements between jurisdictions of bilateral trade with the CBDCs. China already started doing that. Russia already started doing that. Go back in the stories, you'll see what I'm talking about. I covered it at some point, like last couple of months. The point is, pattern wise, like trend wise, this is happening. What we see here in the West, and I said this the other day in the live with King, it's like we have this American Western bubble that we're in about like how we're dominating crypto or how we're dominating tech or how we're dominating whatever it is, right? But then when you start actually looking at the stories and the caveats and the devil in the details, it's just like, we're not doing what we're telling the American public we're doing. Like, in my mind, you don't got to agree with me. Comments is open. We are being gaslit to all new levels of high assness. Okay. And the echo chamber of what the government is telling us, what the industries, the gas industry, the tech industry, the financial industry, whoever, what head you want to say, the level of echo chamber and gaslighting that's going on is mind blowing. Like, I'm a history person. I'm not saying I know. Wait, so does Crypto City on the whole thing with BRICS and launching their own token? I'm honestly not a fan of it, but I understand why they will do it. In that they need a stable medium to be able to operate within their network that insulates them from the USD and insulates them from the SWIFT system. That's the bottom line of it. And this is the point of what I was saying about the Russian story before. If the US either takes the actual assets, or even if they take, because the other argument is to take the interest off of the assets that is in EU and American control, and then be like, look, we didn't take your asset, we only took the interest that those things created, so we, quote, didn't take from you. It don't matter either way. It sets a bad precedent, and it will mess up our, again, the traditional conventional ways of how international business as between countries have been going for decades, if not centuries at this point. Where arguably it's not even that we're like walking in a slippery slope. We're fucking running down the slope. But we're gaslighting the American public that no, everything is good. Everything is A-okay over here. It's them over there doing bad stuff. Think about this. The whole thing going on right now with setting the what's the thing called? The tariff trays on China. And then we had Yellen and Blinken go over there and tell them, hey, you need to stop doing business. And we wagged our finger at them. We put our finger in their face and said, you need to stop doing business the way you're doing it because it's not benefiting us. We didn't say it this way. We didn't say we can't compete because our industry is not producing, which we're not. We're not producing at scale. We don't produce at cost. I'm going to give you a thing to put it in context. A yuan is equal to 14 cents in USD. Put this in context. Why do you think American companies and European companies go all the way over there in order to produce products? Because at cost, when you at scale, it is way cheaper to produce there than back at home. And so, the idea that I lost myself in a tangent, y'all. I so lost myself in a tangent. Damn it, Crypto City. You made me get off on a tangent and I lost myself. And I'm running over time. Listen, the bottom line is the tariffs is not going to do what they're telling the American public it's going to do. Like, for all of the people that I'm paying attention to, economics folks, geopolitical folks, folks that are American and non-American, the sentiment is clear. It's not going to have the effect that the Biden administration is telling the public it will have. This whole thing of us being able to go around the globe and bully other countries into our political desires, our economic desires, is very much going down the side of the cliff. Russia and China very much understand that. You can't be mad at someone else for doing business better than you and then look to bully them and do underhanded things. But then tell your people, oh no, we're doing everything above board. We're doing everything right. The proof is in the pudding. China isn't getting to expand the way it's expanding as far as bilateral trade deals because they're doing crappy stuff. They're expanding because they come with money and they produce the product. GDP is based on production of a product. this whole thing we do here in the States and how we started adding things in that are non-physical products, we're cooking our numbers because we're redefining the metrics. And most folks don't understand that part. Like, look at what goes on with the CPI. We're now taking things out that are everyday average person consumables, that most folks are watching increase in double-digit percentages in their local market. But we're telling everyone inflation ain't going crazy. The prices is going up just a little bit. It's okay. We're pushing this whole energy green thing, and we're being anti-crypto on banking, or sorry, not on banking, on mining. But we're not talking about how with AI and smart vehicles, the data that they generate or the data that they need to consume, you need a huge ass data center on the back end. The Tesla data center is ridiculous. Like, this was like 1 million or something plus square feet footage. No one talks about that in the mainstream stuff. Like, all right, I'm too many rants and tangents off right now. Let me jump to this last story here. Is it the last story? It's not the last story. I'm definitely over today. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm only even going this far because I know the Stack brothers, Stack Bros. It's Stacks, but I call them Stack Bros. They're not gonna come up. I believe they've taken a little pause. I hope everything is going good with them. So I'm gonna jump to. I'm getting off of that. I'm jumping to this next story. Venezuela bans crypto mining as it cripples with power crisis. Notice that all of the countries that are looking to ban crypto mining are using the power argument, and most of the time it is coming from the industry. Yo, you know what's funny? I have a number of female friends who say the same thing about they like when I rant and ramble because they're like, it's interesting the things that you say. And I'm just like, nah, I don't agree with you. But anywho, so Venezuela, all right, here's why I brought this article up. Because at the bottom part of this article, link for this is going to be in the description. It is from Crypto Daily, the UK side. They basically are like, hey, the government is looking to crack down because there's the energy theft, and basically, again, people are mining, they're making money. The energy sector and the government are not getting their cut. That's what this all boils down to. They want their cut. And they're doing it where they're talking about like the commercial side, but they're also sideways really talking about mom and pop level. Here's where this got me. And when I read it, I said, yo, the author or the company of this, the company that wrote this ain't shit. Here, let me read this to y'all real quick. This is not the first time Venezuela has taken steps against crypto mining activities in the country. In March 2023, the country's energy supplier shut down crypto mining facilities across the nation as part of a corruption investigation involving the country's national oil company. Tarek William Saab, the country's attorney general, stated that at the time, the officials were running parallel oil operations with assistance from National Crypto Department. Now, notice in the way that this paragraph puts it, it wasn't illegal oil operations. It wasn't illegal crypto operations. I've talked about this story a number of times. Venezuela was selling oil for crypto, and then the US came in and shut that shit down. Why? Because the US wanted Venezuela to supply them, and they were getting annoyed on how X amount of the oil was making into the what they call the Russian Black Fleet. Point being is Venezuela kowtowed, and then they turned around and said that the dude that they put in charge had criminal connections. Thank you very much, D. I do appreciate, but I just be doubting myself, I guess. Second guessing, imposter syndrome. I don't know. So here it is. Venezuela had a way to like step away from the US control in their oil sector. And instead they kowtowed because it was working. But again, they then turned around and was like, oh, he's a criminal. But it's like, wait a minute, y'all put the dude in the position. Like, think about this. Again, the way we be gaslighting the American public. Gaddafi. When Gaddafi passed, right, when they had the uprising in Libya, a year before that, he was in the States. He was at the UN speaking to the other nations. A year later, they got this man strung up in the streets looking like a dog. Like, that's the craziness of how the geopolitical landscape could switch up. And I don't know if it's just that I pay more attention now because of, again, if you've been following us for a bit, you know, X amount of us is still gang in some regards or another. King, myself, there's a couple other folks within the Warrior Network. We still doing what we do. I'm still a nasty girl, right? I still got a couple more years in on this. But that side of my brain, and then when I look at this other side of the government, the geopolitical landscape, the economic freedom, financial sovereignty and stuff, all of it comes to a head. All of it comes to a head is the point. There's one, you know what? Do I want to do this one? Even though I thought it was stupid. No, yeah, it was this one. All right. Last joint. And then I'm done because my rants is getting stupid right now. I be getting too hyped up. Yo, like y'all don't understand. Like, I'll get up and like if I do the live, it's like, all right, let me run through, look at the articles, and then, you know, and then once I start talking, I see why King. Shout outs to you, King. Cause I see why you be going off, and then you be having hour-long shows that were supposed to be a 20-minute show. Thank you. Yo, listen, Gaddafi was trying to do something. And then, guess who just who was it? Zimbabwe? Somebody just made it that they're putting their currency back on the gold standard. One of the African countries. I think it was Zimbabwe. I don't remember exactly, but I think it was them. And I had wanted to talk about it on Twitter, but I didn't get to that. But anywho, point being is there's a change happening. And yeah, I mean, it probably would have worked out better if some other folks would have like jumped on board and folks decided to move more as a unit, but whatever on that part. Last joint. So Senate passes bipartisan crypto bill. Biden faces dilemma over SEC veto threat. So the bottom line is the Senate is like, hey, we want to do a congressional review act of the SEC staff accounting bulletin number 121. I didn't actually look that part up. But the other part of it is then they also passed the HJ resolution 109, which was like a 60 to 38 vote. Is that, I guess that's bipartisan? All right. And they said that most of it was the Democrats who voted for it, right? Yeah. Okay, thank you, E. It was Zimbabwe. But it don't work. Too much fluctuation. It's gonna have to be a hard reset. That's the bottom line. It's gonna have to be a hard reset, and no one likes going through hard resets, dog. Like at the end of the day, no one likes going through hard resets because they're painful. Bottom line is they're painful, And then the other thing with that is if you don't have um at least one other party, especially as a country, that would be able to aid you for what your trade side is, right? So damn tangent. You go on the gold standard, your money, your currency, your fiat has to go through a reevaluation phase. The question then is, when you are doing your trade deals with the other countries and they're like, whoa, dog, your money's fluctuating crazy, but you're saying, well, no, it's because we're reevaluating based on the goal that we're holding. Here's how much of the goal we're holding. We think that it will take maybe 3 to 6 months, shit, if it's 9 months, for things to stabilize out. But we know that we have the gold, and eventually the fiat market for our currency will recalibrate itself because we have the physical item. Will your trading partners agree to that? And then you have to deal with what's going on locally within your country, right? Are folks going to be willing to accept the local currency, or will they find a way to circumvent what the local currency is? And heaven knows what that could be as a replacement or supplement, because people are going to be people. They're going to be ingenuitive, right? Look at what happened in Venezuela. Suitcases full of money. That was just buying you some bread. So yeah, and I don't know, but the way that the story was looking to me, it doesn't seem like they worked out the how do we deal with our trading partners on one side, and then how do we deal with the local part of the fluctuation? Like, what do we do to help the people make it through this period? I don't think they set solid plans in place on both sides of those deals or like situations. So it is going to be a extra rough reevaluation, calibration for their economic system. But anywho, back to this thing. So this happens. Basically, Biden said, like, I'm gonna probably veto it. Like, I'm not down for what y'all trying to do with the SEC. Of course, the SEC is like, well, we don't want y'all to touch us. We do what we do. Listen, I'm bringing it back to, there are a number of things that are really waiting on our national elections to be done with. And then it's just going to be things dropping left and right. The IRS is going to be a thing. SEC is going to be a thing. DOJ is going to be a thing. The situations we have overseas in relation to Ukraine, in relation to Israel, in relation to Taiwan, in relation to there's African stuff happening too, where there's definitely rumbles about certain countries wanting to kick out U.S. military presence. Then there's the other way of where we're going to increase military presence in other places. I'm gonna say it that way. If you're following what you're following outside of us, like, you understand what I'm saying. But everyone's waiting on the election to happen, and the stuff is already planned out. Now, how it's planned and how it actually works on ground is two different things. And I imagine the administration, as well as the major financial companies, the tech companies, the food industry, the gas industry, all of them, they're going to be doing a fair amount of like damage control once we get past elections. Because you can only hold a facade but for so long. You can only gaslight the people but for so long. You could only spin a narrative that codifies the masses until things break. What that thing is that breaks, I don't know. If you've also been under a rock for a minute, over this weekend, the prime minister of Iran has now passed in a plane crash accident. Who knows what that is going to do for the region and the spill out effect that that's going to have. Yeah. Whether it was an accident or not, there's going to be a spillover. If it was 100% an accident, 100% an accident, there will still be a spillover somewhere, somehow. Time will tell. That was not necessarily crypto related, but yeah, that's one of the other things I'm paying attention to. And so to note, I don't got anything else. That was the last story. This situation with Biden is basically they're gonna wait until elections happen. Which shit, what is that? Another 7? Yeah, like another 5 months. See what occurs the next few days. Yeah. Another 5 months. We're gonna see how it boils down out here, right? Other than that, folks, that's all I got for you. It's a Monday. Hopefully your weekend went well. Hopefully your weekend was drier than it was out this way in the DMV. And hopefully, family's good, you good. If not, like, hey, as I say, have a productive over busy day. If it can't be a productive day, at least be in a safe place, in a safe space, and in good company. And from one human to the next, that is the best that I can wish, right? Other thing, last housekeeping part is this segment is brought to you by CJ the Smart Guy. He is a CPA who focuses on crypto for not residential. Well, the mom and pop folks as well as the business folks. So, not saying you got to use them, but if you want to at least do your research, your due diligence, and being able to compare a tax professional that he is with someone who just got into crypto or is not even into crypto, but just is getting the crypto tax money starting this year, cross your T's and dot your I's, y'all. Just cross your T's and dot your I's. That's what I'm saying. All right. Other than that, y'all, one. Ooh.